Gentlemen, welcome back to the Surplus Bunker. Today, I'm going to be reacting to a video entitled Inside the 360 Live Fire Shoot House, posted on Tim Kennedy's channel. And we're going to talk about the tactics and techniques demonstrated in this video, and I'm going to react to it, and then I'm going to show you how I would actually do these types of things. Comments below, people are paying $1,300 for this class. I'm about to provide you with this type of information for free that is effective and will lower risk to you and your loved ones.
I had the pleasure of coming out to see one of my old commanders, Travis Warlock, and we're at his training facility, ATAC.
Now on the surface, sounds great so far, but let's keep watching.
Decision making is also an imperative portion of what we're doing out here, because we put live guns or cell phones and guns in our target mannequin's hands.
That's a great element that he's brought to his training grounds.
On the move. Now the range out here is 360 degrees, structured for moving and shooting, and armed judgment.
So here's where I began to have issues with the video at the 135 mark, and that is the room entry techniques. We'll see more of that demonstrated in just a moment.
Tactical judgment is what we are trying to push consistently, because we believe the American citizen has really two obstacles in front of them, and that's a literal threat and a legal threat.
Now, he's absolutely correct here. It's ultimately going to be the totality of circumstances. That's a phrase and term that you should familiarize yourself with.
Between myself and my threat, it allows me to use this crazy rotator cuff, which can go all the way over here or all the way back to the coffee cup, and my upper and lower torso stay aligned as they're supposed to athletically, because I can move, reduce my profile, and we're trained to trip going forward to catch ourselves, but not crab walking or sideways. So I put the gun in the hand between myself and the threat, look at where I'm going to go, and this is all on lasers at close range.
Okay, yes, he's spot on about the footwork element, but the shooting position that he's about to demonstrate is not overly advantageous. If someone grabs you, pushes you, shoves you from the side, you are likely going to go to the ground with them. There's very little ability to kind of ground yourself and fight back and really own that fight.
And so I take a step, consider where the gun is, look, pull the trigger, hit the target. Take a step, consider where the laser is, and I'm building muscle memory as every time the laser's on the target, that muscle memory turns into a neural pathway which says wrist, elbow, shoulder, lower back. Ah, that's right what right looks like.
We often train in the military and law enforcement world to square up with our targets based around the idea that we're presenting the most body armor, and that if we present our side, that's usually not covered with very much protective material, right? So at the same time, we also present forward because this is the most advantageous fighting position. Again, we have our feet planted, weight distributed in a position where we can also just pivot our hips, right? We can hip hinge and still continue moving. But yeah, let's watch the application of this. We're gonna go ahead and skip a little further ahead in the video.
All right, brother, here we go.
All right, when you're doing single person CQB, the idea of a singleton room clearing, this is way different than team CQB. So your
issues with that room entry, I see a lot. We could have done a lot of the work here without even having entered that room, right? We could have opened that door, dealt with that initial threat at the front, and then you could have made that harder hook inward if you were going dynamic. But if you found yourself opening that door and that person is there, you deal with that threat, and then now we can eat some of that pie where we can move in and limit the physical risk to ourselves. Because if you start engaging that threat at that entry point into that room, I suspect that you're going to find that that second person is probably going to start moving. They may not cower in that corner, but if you deal with that threat in the doorway, you can also start using voice commands from there. There's not necessarily a reason for you to press into that room fully, because they already know that you're there. And if they start shooting at you, you can also retreat inside your own house. You still have home court advantage. The point here is to survive. And by entering that room in that fashion, if you think that that other person isn't going to potentially start shooting at you or jump on top of you after you just shot their buddy, you're in for a world of hurt.
room clearing, this is way different than team CQB. So your priorities of work are going to be different than having a stack of dudes behind you where I can look left, he can look right, you know, and the opposing person is going to be taking down opposing threats simultaneously. Because of this reshuffle of the priorities of works and because of the lack of support and coordinated taking down of targets simultaneously, you have to do things differently. So, you know, there's a sharp learning curve here. What we're trying to do is teach somebody to process information faster and to be able to prioritize their threats as to what's closer, who can effectively hurt me first, and how and why I'm going to address them in which order.
So you can see how Tim is moving through the house with one hand on the pistol, and he's moving through some very dark spaces. So this is where a support hand becomes really important, because that's how you effectively manipulate your weapons light. You could do it with your trigger finger, but now your trigger finger is not available to actually manipulate the trigger when you need to use it in a dark room. So you really should have that support hand on your firearm. Additionally, it's also another point of retention. If you only have one hand on this pistol and one of the assailants in that room decides to close the gap while you're engaging another one, you're now in a fight over your pistol with just one hand. So the probability of you losing control of your gun is that much higher. So really not great philosophy, in my opinion.
I can see that.
Freaking difficult to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how a 3D gun in a hand is so hard to see at close range. And this is what we like to tell people is that, man, paper targets is what we call paper target pandemonium, man. It is going to cause you to fail because you think you're used to seeing a gun on paper two-dimensional, and it always looks the same no matter where you're at.
Not every firearm is set up to run a weapons light. I'll show you how to effectively run a weapons light with your offhand, should you need to do that. But I really want you to take away from this video that just because someone has a very high-speed background, it doesn't mean that they're qualified to teach you as a responsible private citizen how to effectively defend yourself. And again, it really frustrates me because this guy has such a good background. Let's go ahead and explore how to do this practically and safely so you can win the fight. Now, before we run through this drill, I want to give you a couple of options and talk about some philosophy as to why we would never conduct single-person CQB. In fact, I want to dispel the myth now that there's even such a thing as single-person CQB. There's a lot of people who will push that on you, but respectfully, they just don't have the knowledge and experience to operate by themselves because most of them never really have. Now, civilian law enforcement officers and private security officers do building checks and searches all the time. So there is a better way to do this that limits risk to you. Moving dynamically through your own home during a home invasion, not really a good plan, because now you're losing the home court advantage. Or, for example, this hallway here, I can pin this hallway all by myself. This is a fatal funnel. Now, why would I want to even dump into maybe the bedroom over here? I know that there's a couple assailants in it right now. What advantage would it be to me to even go into there? Now, perhaps it makes sense for me to leave the master bedroom because now I know where they are. So I can keep them in this hallway and away from the rest of my family, right? However, that still poses a lot of risk potential to you because you've left the confines of that room where you could also pin the door with your defensive tool. And if they attempt to enter, again, know the rules, right? Know the laws of the land of where you live, but it puts you in a better situation. Now, why might you need to go out and exit the master bedroom or engage in a search? Now, perhaps it's an extreme grid down event. Maybe there's no law enforcement services in the area in which you live at that point, or maybe you're in a very rural environment and you just need to conduct a building search. Maybe one of your outbuildings, you found it unlocked and you're pretty sure you locked it. So how are we going to move through that space in the most effective way possible? Now, security personnel and civilian law enforcement do lone single-person searches all the time. It's extremely scary. It's very high risk. And again, there are ways we can mitigate that based on our movement patterns. But first, I want to show you one of the simplest things that you can do inside the confines of your own home. If your house is laid out in a similar fashion, you've got a hallway like this, and let's say I'm exiting a bedroom right now. I hear that there's a bump around the corner. maybe I've picked up on my security cameras, there's 3 people in my house right now. What do I do? Well, I'll show you. This is probably as far as I'm going to advance. I'm going to come around the corner here. I'm going to place as much of these door frames between me and the possible threat as possible. Now, keep this in mind too. An American house is not really anything more than concealment. Cover and concealment. Let's deal with that real quick. So concealment just hides your position. Cover will actually effectively stop bullets. Now, some studs and some of the door frame here may help mitigate some pistol rounds coming down range at you, but by no means is it a guarantee. It's just better than me standing here in the middle of the hallway, right? So I'm gonna stay behind this door frame here, and I'm gonna press my pistol out a little bit. I'm gonna keep it in fairly tight to me and just lean out. Now I'm trying to make sure that my body is still behind this, right? So I could even move that leg in a little bit more. If I need to kick it out a little bit more for stability, that's okay. We want to present as little of our body around the corner as possible, and then we can effectively deal with the threat as they come out into the hallway, because now this has turned you into a force multiplier, because if you've got multiple people now dumping into this fatal funnel, they're done for, right? Versus me dumping into that room in the fashion they show in this video, where I'm just waltzing around corners with my pistol out in front of me like a lunatic. I'm gonna get my gun taken, okay? That is a great way to get into a ground fight and get your gun taken from you. So now maybe we've assessed that we need to conduct a search. Perhaps the movement in that room has stopped. We no longer hear anything going on, no more rustling. Maybe they're still in there. Maybe they're aware that I'm out in the hallway because they heard some doors move. So they're freaking out and they're not moving out into the hall for that reason. So how do we assess whether or not they've left? Because maybe they did leave through the bedroom window. So let's talk about that. So if I'm going to start moving forward from here, maybe it's been 20 minutes, right? And I have just been standing here, standing here, standing here. I need to figure out whether or not they're there. So I'm going to bring this pistol in, and there's a lesson here too. We're always going to deal with open doors first. So I'm going to move forward. I see that this door to this room on the right of me is clear or is closed at this time. And that's not that I'm not going to deal with it, but I'm going to deal with what I suspect to be an open door around the corner first, just based on the echoing in the hallway. So I'm moving forward. I'm beginning to lean already. Now I'm bringing my elbows a little bit down and more into my torso to limit my profile as I move more forward. And I am slowly inching forward and sidestepping. I can take as long as I need to do this. I am in no rush to do this. Now, might you be telegraphing a little bit during this move? Perhaps, and this is why I would encourage you to put a camera in the room you're going to move into so you have a good idea of what this looks like from both perspectives, and you can adjust your body and your movement and your footwork accordingly. Now, I'm going to take the upper part of my body, I'm going to lean very aggressively, hard lean to the left. Now, from here, I can begin fighting. If I see somebody on the back left of this room, I can immediately start engaging. My muzzle is clear. And I'm going to press the pistol back in a little bit more and then press out again. And I'm just inching, leaning really hard. Lean. Okay, now I have almost this whole back wall except for the hard right corner cleared at this point. My pistol is still up and I'm ready to fight if I need to. And if I don't like what I see, guess what I can do? I can move back. I was like, okay, they're still in there. I'm going to reposition myself in a more advantageous position to get ready for the fight to continue in the hallway. Now, if I keep moving up, I'm going to reset to about where I was. Lean, right? We're leaning. I'm going in. So I have most of this back right wall clear. I can now see between the gap of the door and that back wall. And I'm going to go ahead and make a larger step now, reposition, and move my pistol to the left side of the room because I've cleared the entire right side of that room. So there's no reason for me to keep pointing my pistol at an area that's clear because the only known threat now is that hard left corner. So now I need to deal with that corner. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera so we can move through the rest of this together. So I'm sure you can see me from here. I can see you from here. You could probably make out a little bit of my arm. You could see the pistol. I can see you. So if I don't like what I see here, Again, I could start fighting from here or I can move back, okay? But we're gonna go ahead, say this is all clear along the right side here, right? I'm moving. I want you to see how this movement looks. Very slow, lean. And now now that I've cleared this whole right side, as I said, I'm gonna bring that pistol back in because I can still fight with my pistol here. If somebody comes around that left corner, I can start engaging. There's an extended wall here just a little bit, so I have a hard left corner in this room. I've got the pistol in tight. I'm moving past the door frame. I'm gonna press that pistol out a little bit more, not fully extend, a little bit more, because I'm gonna do another lean real quick. I'm gonna lean and then press and commit to that because I only have that corner and now I'm starting to really telegraph what I'm doing. If there is somebody there and I still want to have the advantage, right? If they now close this gap and try to grab my gun as I'm coming around, I can still engage them effectively and deal with that threat. So hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of how to deal with one of these scenarios in a more effective way that lowers risk to you and your loved ones if you have to conduct some type of search of your home in any situation. But again, I would stress that you wait for the pros to get there if you can. If not, again, hopefully this gives you something to add to your tool belt should you need to defend your family, search your home, search an outbuilding. And you also have to understand this too. If you do this is a very time-consuming type of thing. You can see that I'm starting to sweat a little bit. It's fairly cool in my house right now. But you're gonna have to search every single closet. You're gonna have to search every single cabinet if you find yourself in this event. And here's the other thing too. I just hit this room. So when I dump back out into this hallway, guess what I have to do? I now have to retake this hallway. So I'm gonna come out in a way that allows me to retake the hallway, right? We don't want to telegraph too much, maybe a little lean forward. I have the pistol kind of compressed, but I can deal with the threat and come out if there is a threat either direction. From there, I'm gonna work my way to this other bedroom. I'm gonna check that bedroom, and guess what? When I come back out, I'm gonna have to recheck this closet, recheck this bedroom, and then hit this bathroom. So this is gonna take a very long time. It's going to be extremely stressful, and the only way that you're gonna be able to effectively do this as well is if you're in really good shape, because you're gonna start to get sloppy as you move through this, which presents more and more risk to you as well. So hopefully you feel a little better prepared to deal with something like this now. Consider this a primer. This is by no means a substitute for a training class. Again, the big thing too, as I said, this is just concealment, right? We also do want to maintain a little bit of distance from us on the wall. We don't want to rub. There could be the risk of projectiles or shrapnel or things coming off the wall. And also you're telegraphing, maybe if somebody's on the other side of this wall, they're not in this room anymore, right? Then I don't want them to know exactly where I am. And if rounds start coming through this drywall, again, we can continue to move back. If we dump into that room and there are multiple assailants, we're probably going to lose. We're going to get our gun taken, we're going to get jumped. You're not going to just apply force to one person and not expect somebody else to also begin engaging you. I think that's a pretty reckless line of thought and training. And the average person cannot effectively do what they're demonstrating. Just make sure you're training the right things, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're overstating or thinking that you have the abilities of John Wick and you are ignoring the fact that John Wick is a work of fiction. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Have a good one. See you in the next one. If you have a firearm that is not set up to run with a weapons light, I know not everyone does, you probably still have a flashlight or a mag light at home, though a little less advantageous now. The technology with flashlights has made some incredible leaps in the last few years. So this would be my preferred method. You will still see some agencies teaching the old FBI method. This is still used. I know those of us in the tactical know are like, what? But it is still a thing. I like the offhand still being supported, or still being a support tool for you if you're having to do this and you don't have a weapons mounted light. Now, I would encourage you to get one and to get a pistol set up for a weapons mounted light, but we don't all have access to that. I also have my support hand set up where if I need to hit that light, I can hit it with my thumb. I don't want to just have the light, white light running around like this and telegraphing exactly what I'm doing.